Hello friends, my name is Cameron. Welcome back to my channel. Now in this episode of America's Biggest Wankers, you have Akshaya Kubiak, who's also known as Ash. He is the suspect, and you have the victim Herleen Dulai. On July the 16th, 2020, Ash Armand called 911. It was 10 a.m. and he was calling from his Las Vegas condo. Near him lay a dead body of a woman. He said they took mushrooms together, said their prayers together, and put on Avatar together. He was 6'1" and weighed 205 pounds. He was muscular, and would you agree, he was a handsome bastard. He was best known as the star of Showtime's reality show Gigolos, where he went by the name Ash Armand. He told the dispatcher he had some mushrooms and was no longer in this reality. He claimed he was in trans-different realities, and then he saw the person next to him. That person was Herleen Dulai. She was 29 years old, with shiny black hair, large brown eyes, and a sparkling smile. She was gorgeous. She modeled occasionally, but was known for being shy and reserved, and that's what may have been what drew Ash to her. In fact, a friend of Ash did say that he would go after the new models that seemed lost. And Herleen Dulai fit the bill. She was fairly new to Vegas. She'd moved there in 2017 to pursue a degree after having obtained her bachelor's in biological sciences. She herself was raised in California by an aerospace engineer father and a mother who had two master's degrees, both of whom had emigrated from India. Dulai was the youngest of three and her parents' favorite. They gave her the nickname Happy Herleen because she was always smiling. Although she was quiet around most people, she was quite mischievous at home, always cracking jokes, and her emotions ran deep. She hid in a closet, crying when her older sister moved out to go to college. Soon after moving to Vegas, Dulai did something seemingly designed to combat both her emotional and physical insecurities. She joined a fitness gym, which bills itself as a life-changing facility that promotes unity and self-development through fitness. She spent time at that gym but did not have an easy start. You see, during her first training session with the owner, Nick Lewis, she was so nervous that when he left her alone for a few minutes, he came back to find her coiled up in a ball, shaking in the corner of the room. "What's up?" he said. Herleen told him that she had headache issues, a tumor in her head. She needed to be in the dark. And whether Herleen actually had cancer was unclear. In fact, in a video from 2019, she sat on a darkened stage at the gym and told a small audience of around a dozen people that she had been battling a brain tumor and had gone through chemo. Lewis, who went to a doctor's appointment with her, said that it actually wasn't cancer at all. Lewis himself helped her lose 40 pounds in 30 days, and in the process, the two became close. She'd go to his house and hang out with his nieces and nephews, bringing them donuts. Eventually, she became a personal trainer, and the job agreed with her, opening her up and giving her more confidence. And just a few months later, Herleen stopped working as a trainer for the gym. She said she was falling out of love with it, and she was depressed. Not long after that, in 2020, Ash sent her an Instagram DM. Cheeky bastard. And it seemed that Ash was a tough guy to ignore. He was an imposing figure, a 38-year-old hunk who looked like he'd walk off the cover of a romance novel. Thanks to his flowing hair, 8-pack abs, and sculpted physique, steroid-enhanced according to his friends, but still, he was distractingly handsome. He was so attractive that in fact women paid him $800 to spend 2 hours with him, $3,000 for an overnight stay, and $25,000 for a week. Jesus. For at least 8 years prior to meeting Herleen, Ash had been working as a gigolo. starting when he was living in Miami with his then partner and their son, and continuing over the years, including a short stint on Showtime's Gigolos. Though he had a girlfriend at the time, Ash's sex work was ongoing when he connected with Herleen. But was Herleen his client? Everyone who spoke about this murder had a different theory. Ash's ex-girlfriend, Lisa, who was living with him at the time, said Herleen was definitely a client. Lewis, the gym trainer, thought so as well. It was said that Herleen rejected Ash when he first reached out to her, but he was persistent. Whether they were having a paid or unpaid relationship, or whether it shifted from one thing to another at some point is unclear. But Ash's parents say that the two were communicating daily. In a matter of weeks, their relationship had gone from casual DMs to something far more intimate and intense. Intensity was a quality Ash brought to everything he did. From when he was a little boy, he grew up immersed in the healing traditions and philosophies of the East and West. Both his Asian Indian mother and Polish American father were teachers, and they exposed him to an international crowd of scientists, poets, and intellectuals, artists, and academics of every stripe. Ash himself had not aspired to be a gigolo, and his path to Vegas was a circuitous one. At the age of 16, he left school and took an apprentice to learn the ancient Chinese discipline of Qigong, which involves meditation, bodywork, and sometimes healing practices with herbs. He also studied Zen Shiatsu, a form of massage combined with philosophy. He worked as a model before moving back to Maine and getting his GED in 2000. He also trained a bit in martial arts like Muay Thai. During his time, Ash was involved in the psychedelic trance community, through which he and a few hundred other people would gather to drop mushrooms and sway to electronic trance music in the woods all night. Now, Ash was working for a place called Cowboys for Angels, and after 6 months he was hired to be on Gigolos, which then was in its second season on Showtime, filmed in Vegas. And Ash, well, he needed the money. He had a family to feed, and he was barely making out a living giving massages. The show's producers thought Ash would shine once he was actually on the show. The producers said he was a good balance for the other characters. They made him out to be the Zen warrior, a peaceful guy. His friends say that the portrayal of him was accurate. He was insecure about how the other guys were more muscular than he was. He started doing steroids, and he just got too massive. It was almost too much. Once he got that attention from the public, it was filling a void where he felt like now he'll be able to get important messages out to more people. However, his drug use also grew more expansive in Vegas, including marijuana, cocaine, and MDMA. He had a lot of experience with all of those substances. Instead of being focused on mediation and healing, Ash began partying on the Vegas Strip a lot with bottle birds, who were the hot Instagram models that hung around. Among that type of women, Ash was very popular. Now, a few months after the show ended in 2016, Ash was invited to a pool party. He brought along his then girlfriend, Tuki Cash. At some point, the host of the party, named Armani, and Ash, they started to have an argument because Ash and Tuki insisted on staging Instagram photo shoots, and Armani told them to stop. According to Armani, Ash then challenged him to a fight. There was no fight, but Ash left in a huff, and the friendship was never the same, even though they continued to work together. By the time Herleen met Ash, he was a man whose time as a reality TV star was years in the past. Ash had also been fired from his agency, Cowboys for Angels, in 2019 because he did not properly represent the brand anymore. After the show, instead of Ash being all about the client, it was more about him, and this wasn't something the agency liked. Also, he was broke, having apparently spent most of his money he'd earned from his time as a gigolo. You see, he had an addiction to attention, and attention is a drug. Because of his level of celebrity, Ash got plenty of feedback on social media, but he was never satisfied. He would post progressively more provocative photos. But the problem was that you always had to give more, and you get diminishing returns because it's never worth it. You see, at first, you get 20 likes, yay. Then you get 200 likes, yay. Then you get 2,000. Then you get 200,000, and you just want more and more and more. That social media algorithm is addictive. Ash's obsession with appearances and his online persona make it easy to wonder, why was he drawn to Herleen? She wasn't the type of woman he usually dated. He preferred to date wildly popular Instagram models like Tucci, who had millions of followers. Herleen only created an Instagram account because the gym made her. Some of their friends think it may have been their shared Indian heritage that drew them together. You have this guy who's made all this money, and then you have Herleen, whose family's very secure financially. Maybe that's why he kept her around. At the beginning of the pandemic, including when he was seeing Herleen, Ash had mainly spent his time holed up in his condo with Lisa, taking psychedelics and anabolic steroids and working out. He had upped his steroids at that time because he was working on a pitch for a new TV show. Ash was also working on an app for safe dating opportunities and a security service for women. Then one day, in June, he and Herleen traveled to Utah together and had a life-changing experience. This involved a spiritual breakthrough that made her remember something very traumatic. And although he seemed really excited for Herleen to have the breakthrough, he was stirring things up that wasn't his job to stir. In fact, a lot was being stirred at this time. You see, a month into his relationship with Herleen, Ash broke up with Lisa, telling her that he'd fallen out of love with her. She was blindsided and broken-hearted, but since she had nowhere to go, she continued to stay with Ash. On July the 15th, the day Herleen came over, the day before she died, Ash told Lisa that Herleen had some horrible dark energy around her. And so Lisa left the house, leaving the two of them alone. And yet, that same day, Herleen called her father. She was happy, joking, and discussed how she was going to keep the family together when her father wasn't around. By the time Herleen went to his place, it doesn't seem as if their relationship was romantic, but it was still intimate. It was said that Ash's sessions with Herleen had stopped being sexual and had become about soul searching and healing. At some point during the evening, Herleen and Ash took mushrooms and climbed the stairs in the condo heading to Ash's bedroom. This is where a chandelier dangled from the ceiling. They lit candles, they prayed, they watched Avatar. The next morning, when he called 911, he told the operator that there was a struggle. He said he temporarily lost his mind, and he told the dispatcher that Herleen had had a heart attack and that she'd had a history of cancer. So the Clark County Fire Captain, Darren Lutz, received the call a little while later, sending him to the condo. Lutz and his crew raced up to the stairs to the primary bedroom, and there was Ash. He was pressing down on Herleen's chest, his phone by his side. But what Lutz and his team saw when they arrived hardly looked like a heart attack. He took note of Herleen's black and blue swollen face, blood surrounding her matted hair. Her ear was a giant bruise. Her body was covered in candle wax, as was the open suitcase that lay at her feet. 2 candles stood near her body, their surfaces marked with bloody handprints. Near the suitcase was a black shirt and a ceramic statue, both spattered with blood. Lutz ordered Ash to step out of the way so his team could take over. They asked Ash when was the last time she was even awake or talking. He didn't say anything. How did she get the black eye and the facial injuries? He said She attacked me and I attacked her. Lutz then told Ash to go downstairs and wait for the ambulance. Lutz followed to keep an eye on him and make sure he didn't flee. Soon after they got downstairs, the ambulance showed up. After the other group of paramedics entered his condo, Ash turned to Lutz and said, "Is she still alive?" And Lutz didn't really answer him. He said, "I was trying to keep it light." Instead, he said to Ash they were going to transport her to the hospital. Then Ash looked at him and he said, "I did this. Are the police coming?" To which Lutz said, "They normally come to this type of situation." And Ash concluded by saying, "When the police get here, I will surrender." But what Ash did not know, Herleen was never transported to the hospital. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Homicide detectives were sent to the house and they found blood spattered inside the washing machine and bloody clothes inside it. On the bathroom counter were blood stains that had been watered down, as if in an attempt to wash them away, and a blood-soaked towel. There was the appearance of a cleanup. A sheath knife hung on the wall on the left of Ash's bed. Detectives found a pocket knife. Herleen's backpack was leaning against the couch. Mushrooms were in the refrigerator. Now, when the police inspected Ash for injuries, all they found was a small cut on the middle finger of his left hand and blood on his ear, which they assumed was from performing CPR on Herleen. The full extent of Herleen's injuries weren't known until the forensic medical pathologist released her autopsy. Her body was covered in contusions, her mouth was pulverized, her gums shredded. Wait, who shreds gums? Her teeth were broken, and fragments of them were found in her stomach. Her tongue, eye globe, scalp, brain, esophagus, arms, legs, and nose had hemorrhaged. She had aspirated some of her blood into her lungs. She had a fractured neck bone and a broken rib. It was determined that the cause of death was blunt force trauma, with strangulation as a contributing factor. That's a weird way of saying heart attack, eh? She had MDMA, psilocybin, caffeine, and alcohol in her system. Letters to the court show that friends and family adored him. One friend said, "Not once in the past 20 years have I seen him be violent." His father said, "There have never been any violent incidences." His brother said, "It is utterly impossible to imagine him harming another soul." One of his aunties said, "To name Ash violent or even capable of violence is ridiculous, impossible, unimaginable." And all of this is normal, by the way. If ever you've been through a court file, there's always statements from the family that they give to the judge to hope for some kind of leniency. And in all the case files I have seen, there's never been a single letter from a family member that's been negative. They thought he was dealing with something so deep that he lost himself. He compared himself to Dorian Gray. He lacked a soul. And I think the Dorian Gray comparison is apt. For those that don't know, the story of Dorian Gray is one where beauty and sensual fulfillment is the only point to life. How could someone do this to a woman? But if you watch Gigolos, Ash's appearance takes on a different meaning. Vampires really captured my imagination. They lust for blood, but they also generally hunt down beautiful women. I like the whole idea of having unlimited power. This is what he said on one of those episodes. Later in that same episode, Ash, clad in plastic fangs, walks up to a wooden coffin, opens the lid, and gazes into the eyes of his client, who is playing dead. After he lifts her out, she places her hands on the coffin, and they have sex. Red candles, dripping wax surrounding them. It's impossible to know why Ash might have murdered Herleen, but some say that the most common predictor for intimate partner violence is a recent breakup, which Ash did have, just not with Herleen. But it's not uncommon for men to project their anger from a breakup onto a new woman. He admitted that he was there, and he said, "I did this," but he did not plead guilty in court. He claimed she attacked him first. His lawyer argued that Ash and Herleen were likely under the influence of drugs. Evidence further exists as containing discovery that Herleen was the initial aggressor. Ash was in a condition wherein he reasonably believed, under the totality of the circumstances, that his life was in danger and he acted accordingly. Some at the time did say their first thought when they heard about the killing was that Ash had tried to do some sort of exorcism by creating a ritual space with candles. So, to conclude, after emotional statements from Herleen's family members, the judge sentenced 40-year-old Ash to 8 to 20 years in prison for Herleen's death in July 2020. Ash, who initially faced a murder charge, decided in the end to plead guilty to felony counts of voluntary manslaughter and mayhem. He went on to say he's never struck a woman in his life and he never wanted to hurt Herleen. The judge himself considered the lack of premeditation and sense in the crime leading to a lenient sentence. Ash's defense team tried to reduce the sentence to 4 years, but this was rejected. 4 years? I've slept longer than 4 years. So, how do we conclude on this story? I could say so many bad things about him, but he's going to be released at some point, and I don't want him to find me and snap my neck. But we can both agree this guy was a wanker. You see, a lot of problem men like him have, where they have all the women, they have quite a bit of money, right? They're in Vegas, they have some of the fame, is that they think this is the pinnacle of life. And this is where Dorian Gray becomes applicable, because at some point, chasing the next high, whether it's the dopamine rush from Instagram likes or whether it's a big paycheck in your bank account, at some point you will feel empty. He didn't find his purpose in life, and whatever that was for him, it certainly wasn't chasing women. Thank you for watching.